skies over Los Angeles had never looked quite so ominous. On January 2, 2025, as meteorologists gathered for their morning briefing, an uncomfortable silence filled the room. The data on their screens told a story none of them wanted to read. A perfect storm was brewing. Record-breaking dry conditions, unprecedented high temperatures for January, and a massive Santa Ana wind system approaching from the east. They knew what this meant. Fire weather. "We need to issue the red flag warnings now," Sarah Chen, the lead meteorologist, announced to her team. This isn't just another windy day in LA. Within hours, emergency alerts buzzed on phones across Southern California, warning residents of extreme fire danger. But even the most seasoned weather experts couldn't have predicted the devastating scale of what was about to unfold. 5 days later, on January 7th, the first spark ignited. In the upscale community of Pacific Palisades, where multi-million-dollar homes perch precariously on hillsides overlooking the Pacific Ocean, a downed power line created a tiny flame. Under normal conditions, it might have been contained within minutes, but these weren't normal conditions. The Santa Ana winds, howling through canyons at speeds reaching 100 miles per hour, grabbed that spark and transformed it into an inferno. The Palisades Fire, as it would come to be known, raced through the drought-stricken landscape with terrifying speed. Residents had minutes, not hours, to grab what they could and flee. Plants and trees were very dry. Climate change made the weather hotter and drier. As firefighters battled the Palisades blaze, a second major fire erupted in Altadena. The Eaton Fire, as it was dubbed, created its own weather system, with smoke plumes visible from space. Between these two monster fires and the 21 other significant blazes that would ignite over the next few days, Southern California faced an unprecedented crisis. The timing couldn't have been worse. The Los Angeles Fire Department was grappling with recent budget cuts totaling $17.6 million, which had reduced training hours and emergency preparedness programs. Adding to their challenges, the massive Santa Ynez Reservoir, capable of holding 117 million gallons of water, sat empty due to ongoing repairs to fix a tear in its cover. It wasn't scheduled to be operational again until February. Despite these setbacks, the response was swift and massive. Governor Harris declared a state of emergency before the first major fire even started, mobilizing 65 additional fire trucks, 7 helicopters, and over 100 emergency personnel. Local schools either closed their doors or relocated students to safer areas. Power companies made the difficult decision to implement rolling blackouts, cutting electricity to up to 400 homes in an attempt to prevent more fires from starting. But the winds seemed to laugh at human efforts to control the destruction. Trees crashed onto roads and homes. Power lines snapped like thread. The sky turned an eerie orange grue as smoke and dust choked the air. At LAX and other regional airports, pilots struggled to land in the violent gusts, leading to hundreds of canceled flights. Major highways turned into parking lots as people tried to evacuate, while others became impassable due to fallen debris and encroaching flames. In the midst of this chaos, stories of heroism and community spirit emerged. Firefighters worked 48-hour shifts, pushing themselves to the brink of exhaustion. Police officers went door to door in endangered neighborhoods, helping elderly residents evacuate. Helicopter pilots braved dangerous conditions to make water drops on the flames, sometimes flying so close to the fires that their aircraft sustained damage from the intense heat. The community response was equally inspiring. Local churches and schools transformed into emergency shelters within hours. Restaurants, many already struggling in the post-pandemic economy, provided free meals to evacuees and emergency workers. People opened their homes to strangers, and animal shelters worked overtime to rescue and house displaced pets. But the fires showed no mercy. As the days wore on, the numbers told a devastating story. 25 lives lost, 1-800-0 people evacuated, and more than 12400 buildings damaged or destroyed. The fires had become some of the worst in California's history, a state already too familiar with wildfire devastation. What we're seeing here isn't just bad luck or poor preparation, explained Dr. James Martinez, a climate scientist at UCLA. This is climate change in action. The conditions that made these fires so devastating, the extreme winds, the unprecedented dry spell, the higher temperatures, these are all consistent with what we've been warning about for years. The fires exposed vulnerabilities in the city's infrastructure and emergency response systems. The budget cuts to the fire department had left them understaffed and under-resourced. The empty reservoir highlighted the fragility of the city's water management system. The power grid proved susceptible to wind damage, leading to widespread outages that complicated evacuation efforts and emergency communications. As the winds finally began to die down and the fires came under control, Los Angeles faced the daunting task of recovery. The immediate challenges were enormous. Finding permanent housing for displaced residents, clearing dangerous debris, restoring power and water services, and beginning the massive cleanup of toxic ash and debris. But even as the embers still glowed, city officials and community leaders were looking toward the future. New regulations were proposed for building construction in fire-prone areas. Plans were made to improve early warning systems and evacuation procedures. The fire department's budget came under review, with many calling for increased funding for training and equipment. The environmental impact would take years to fully assess. Entire ecosystems were destroyed, and wildlife experts worried about the long-term effects on local animal populations. Plans were made for massive reforestation efforts, though everyone understood that it would take decades for the scarred landscape to heal. In the aftermath, Los Angeles emerged as both a cautionary tale and an inspiration. The fires exposed the deadly serious consequences of climate change and the urgent need for better preparation and resources. But they also showed the remarkable resilience of a community coming together in crisis. Local resident Tom Chen, who lost his home in the Palisades fire but helped save his elderly neighbors, summed up the mixed emotions many felt. It's heartbreaking to see everything we built turn to ash, but watching how people helped each other, how strangers became family overnight, that gives me hope. We'll rebuild, and we'll rebuild smarter. The city's recovery plan was comprehensive, focusing not just on immediate reconstruction, but on long-term resilience. New building codes would require fire-resistant materials and better evacuation routes. The power grid would be modernized and hardened against wind damage. Water storage facilities would be expanded and better protected. Perhaps most importantly, there would be increased funding for fire prevention and emergency response services. Community education became a priority. Programs were developed to teach residents about creating defensive space around their homes, maintaining emergency supplies, and developing family evacuation plans. Schools incorporated disaster preparedness into their curricula, ensuring the next generation would be better prepared. As Los Angeles began its long journey toward recovery, the lessons of the January 2025 fires resonated far beyond Southern California. Other cities studied Los Angeles's experience, updating their own emergency plans and infrastructure. Climate scientists pointed to the fires as yet another wake-up call about the urgent need to address global warming. 1 year later, signs of renewal began to appear. New homes rose from the ashes, built to stricter safety standards. The hills began to show traces of green as native plants returned. Community bonds forged in the crisis remained strong, with neighborhood groups continuing to support those still struggling to rebuild. The fires had changed Los Angeles forever, but not just in ways that could be seen in the scarred landscape. They had transformed the city's understanding of its vulnerability and its strength. As one local fire chief reflected, "These fires showed us our worst nightmare, but they also showed us the best of who we are. We learned that we're stronger than we knew, but also that we need to be smarter than we've been." The story of the 2025 Los Angeles wildfires became more than a tale of destruction. It became a story of awakening, of community, and of humanity's complex relationship with the natural world. It served as a powerful reminder that in an era of climate change, the line between natural and human-caused disasters has blurred, and our response must evolve accordingly. For the people of Los Angeles, the memory of those terrifying days in January would never fade. But neither would the memory of how their city came together, how strangers became heroes, and how from the ashes of disaster, a more resilient community emerged. As they looked to the future, they carried with them both a harder wisdom and a stronger sense of hope, knowing that whatever challenges lay ahead, they would face them together.